Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for giving me this wonderful opportunity to be able to make a brief presentation to you. I want to speak here. I want to speak from here. I would be uneasy if I speak at the center of the stage. So please allow me to be here. And internet addiction or internet use disorder is a huge problem in this country. I have learned that. The situation is the same in our country. So I'm from Japan. In my presentation, I am going to briefly summarize the clinical manifestation of internet use disorder and how it is diagnosed in our clinical practices. In this presentation, I will use the term internet use disorder rather than internet addiction and internet dependence. Please allow me to say sometimes IUD instead of using internet use disorder. Let me start with the brief review of the history and development of the internet. The internet was first developed in early 1960s. The email was initiated by a company in Massachusetts, the United States, in 1972, followed by the adoption by the Department of Defense in the United States in 1980. And the commercial networks such as AOL and Prodigy began in 1995, followed by the entry of Microsoft into the internet market and the launch of Google in 1998. Over the past 15 years, we have witnessed the rapid development of internet services and electronic devices. The growth rates have been approximately 3.3% in developed countries and 8.7% in developing countries. By 2014, the internet user penetration was 40% globally, and approximately 45% of the world's internet users were from Asia-Pacific region. This slide shows the estimated prevalence of internet use disorder among adolescents by country or region. The orange bars in the graph shows the range of prevalence in each region and country. As you can see, the estimated prevalence varies widely, especially in your country, Korea, and in China. In the case of Korea, it ranges from 1.6% to almost 40%. Whereas in China, it is from 0.6% to almost 30%. This may be a reflection that many studies on the prevalence of internet use disorder has been conducted in this country and in China. And those studies may use different methodology to ascertain the internet use disorder. But generally speaking, the prevalence of internet use disorder tend to be higher in Asian countries, including Korea, than in other parts of the world. This is the estimated prevalence of internet use disorder among adults, including college students. As you can see, the estimated prevalence among adults tend to be lower than that among adolescents. This may be due to the limited number of publications among adults than compared to among adolescents. In some countries, the estimated prevalence tend to be lower. For example, in your country and in Japan, then I'm talking about the prevalence among adults than the prevalence among adolescents. But in other areas, there are not so much difference. I will skip this one. By the way, is internet use disorder an addiction? Or in other words, is it a disease? There are two globally approved diagnostic criteria or guidelines. They are ICD-10 of WHO and DSM-5 of the American Psychiatric Association. I think in your country like Japan, you use ICD-10 rather than DSM-5 for your clinical purposes. Unfortunately, ICD-10 does not include internet use disorder or addiction as a disease. But in the case of DSM-5, they say probably yes. Why probably? It includes the diagnostic guideline of internet gaming disorder, but as mentioned by Professor Mark Potenza, it is in candidate status and needs further research before it will be officially included. In the WHO meetings, which was held in Tokyo last year, and which was held this year until yesterday in Seoul, we have discussed the possible inclusion of diagnostic guidelines for internet use disorder in the updated version of ICD-10, which is ICD-11, and will be released in 2018. Why do we need diagnostic guidelines? One obvious reason is simple. We want to use that for clinical purposes. We cannot make an accurate diagnosis without having the globally approved diagnostic guidelines. Second, to promote research. Again, we cannot conduct good research on the common basis. We do not have a common basis. And when we plan and implement the prevention and control measures for internet use disorder, we need to have a clear vision of target. Finally, as a basis for fighting against IT industry, we are on the public health side. And we will sometimes have a chance to talk with IT industry, but we should share common understanding that the internet overuse causes very severe type of disease. But, however, what is internet disorder? We didn't have a clear definition of internet use disorder, but we could almost reach consensus regarding the concept of internet disorder based on the discussion done in the WHO meeting for the past 3 days. According to my opinion, it is a combination of addictive behavior and its health, social, familial consequences. Then what is addictive behavior? There are several specific symptoms have been identified, but there's, I should say, no consensus yet. For example, one is preoccupation, or called salience. If you have internet use disorder, you may think internet use all the time, even though you cannot use internet. You may lose, or you may have to lose control over internet use, or you need to increase the amount of time spent on internet to satisfy yourself. This is called tolerance. And if you cannot use internet, or you have to reduce the amount of time on internet, you may get irritable or angry. And that may be called withdrawal symptoms. And you may continue to use internet despite knowledge that it may cause the serious health, social consequences. And other symptoms. These are list of health, social, and familial consequences, or I should say complications. As you can see, there are numerous. Examples are low grade in school, absence from school, dropping out from school, depression, and isolation from society, or conflicts with parents, and so forth. IUD, internet use disorder, may form the vicious cycle. Spending a lot of time on internet causes the impaired lifestyle, including night and day reversal. And this lifestyle causes the complications such as tardiness, absence, and dropping out of school, as I mentioned earlier. At the same time, this lifestyle may create more free time, and then lead to the more time on internet. There are basically two types of diagnostic guidelines of internet use disorder. One is so-called the diagnostic guideline for generalized internet use disorder, under which many various activities are included, such as online gambling, online video gaming, SNS, and pornography viewing, and electronic bulletin board. The overindulgence in one specific activity can be called a respective addiction. For example, SNS addiction. As I mentioned previously, the DSM-5 of American Psychiatric Association picked up the internet gaming and created the diagnostic guideline of internet gaming disorder. But again, this is in the candidate's position. And WHO has not yet decided, but at least the gaming disorder and other activities would be separated for making guidelines. This is the diagnostic guideline of internet gaming disorder of DSM-5. As you can see, the guideline is comprised of 9 items. They represent the addictive behavior as well as the social and health and social consequences. In order to make diagnosis, at least 5 items are met. How to make a diagnosis? This is the clinical practices we are doing at our center in Japan. When we have a patient, we obtain information, family and life history, internet use, and its associated problems. At the 2nd through 4th visit, we evaluate IUD, examine the physical and mental status. At 5th visit, we are making a comprehensive disorders, including comorbid psychiatric disorder, explain the result of examination to the parents and to the patient and parents, and discuss them ways to treat IUD. And I will skip this one. Two types of screening instruments have been developed. One is for internet use disorder in general. The examples are A and K scales that have been developed in Korea I think by the Korean government. And the other is the instrument for specific addiction. One example is the Korean smartphone addiction proneness scale for youth, which was developed by Professor Kim Dae-jin. The treatment goal of internet use disorder is somewhat different from other types of addiction, including alcohol dependence. In the case of alcohol dependence, the total abstinence may be the only goal because the patient cannot gain control over alcohol consumption. But moderation may be the reasonable treatment goal for internet use disorder. Basically, there are 2 types of treatment modalities. One is psychosocial treatment. It includes cognitive behavioral therapies, psychoeducational programs, family therapy, and group counselings. Existing evidence has shown that it is efficacious for the treatment of internet use disorder. The other modality is pharmacotherapy. Although many attempts have been conducted, no drug has been proven to be efficacious for the treatment of internet use disorder. But it has been shown that the treatment of comorbid psychiatric disorder with appropriate medication may improve the social functions. This is the key message that I want you to bring back to your home. But I do not repeat again, but the most important part is the last sentence. Government should encourage mental health professionals and spread school-based, community-based, and hospital-based treatment approaches to individuals with internet use disorder according to their disease stages. This was added by the local organizing committee, not me. Thank you very much.
네, 감사드립니다.